Welcome to Make Something with me, David Picciuto, and today I'm going to show you how to batch out a bunch of these beer totes that you can sell online and at craft shows for profit. Cheers. Check it. You've seen me make this in the past, but I'm getting ready for a craft show this fall, so I'm going to make these again so I can sell them at the craft show. And since I'm making stuff, I might as well film it and make a better version of it. So one beer tote I'm going to make out of this solid walnut I have. These are all the solid walnut scraps that I have laying around. It's time to get rid of them. Craft shows are a great way for me to get rid of scraps. But for craft shows, you want to batch things out so you can make things as quickly as possible and keep the prices down. So I have this 1/2-inch sheet of walnut plywood that's going to allow me to make these very quick. So we're going to do one solid walnut beer tote, and then we're going to do a handful of the 1/2-inch walnut plywood. Here we go. I'm going to take this 3/4-inch piece and resaw it down. Respect the walnut. So now I'm going to cut the two end pieces for this beer tote. I can get 2 of them out of this solid piece of walnut, and I can get a whole bunch out of this piece of plywood here. Next up, we're going to mark and drill where the holes are going to be for the handle. If you're using plywood, you definitely need a backer in the back so it doesn't blow out. Or any wood for that matter. So now it is time to draw the lines so we can cut the angles on the ends here. So you can do one at a time. Mark all your lines. And then go and draw your lines. Or after you have one, you can use that as the template for the rest of them. So now we're going to cut this out over at the bandsaw, but if you're using plywood, I highly suggest you put masking tape on the back because it will splinter out and the masking tape will keep it nice and clean. Next up, the front and the back, once again, out of solid wood, and then we're going to batch a bunch out of the plywood. So now that we have the front and the back and the 2 sides cut, we need to cut a groove for the bottom panel in the 2 sides. So I have my blade set to half the height of the board, and we're just going to run them through and cut the groove. Next up, we're going to cut the plywood bottoms to size. They're going to be the exact length of the 2 side pieces, and they will butt up against the front and back. So now we're going to cut our dowel handle to length. Instead of cutting to a predetermined size, we're going to pre-assemble our caddy here and then draw our line. The reason you want to do it this way is because plywood doesn't come in exact dimensions and it may vary, so you can get the perfect length by marking this way. I'm going to cut my dowels over here at the bandsaw. Whenever you're cutting something round like this, the bandsaw tends to want to pull it away from you and your hands toward the blade. So you have to be really careful. Keep your hands very far away from the blade. Another safe way to do this is just cut it by hand with a handsaw. It doesn't take that much longer. Before we assemble everything together, I want to sand the inside faces of all the pieces. It just makes life easier. I'm going to glue everything together. I'm not going to glue the plywood in there. I'm just going to let it free float, but I will glue the handle and the ends, and we'll reinforce this ends in a future step. Really important to not forget the bottom or the handle. I've done this in the past. Cool. So while those caddies are drying up, we're going to cut the inserts over here at the table saw. These inner pieces, we're going to draw up and cut out the notches. And we're going to cut a few of these out on the bandsaw and then a few out on the table saw just to show that there's two ways to do it. On the bigger pieces, we need to divide this into thirds. Going to use my little divider tool here. And it's about perfect. So I'll just make a mark in there. That is where we need to go. Then we can take this board, center that on there, and cut those notches out. So now we're going to reinforce these joints by drilling a 1/4 inch hole and then stuffing it with a 1/4 inch dowel, and that'll give it some strength. So I don't want tear out when I drill into the plywood. So again, I'm just going to throw some tape on there. You can throw the dividers in there. They just go together like that. There you go. A little bit more sanding, some finish, and some beers, and that'll be done. So I finished everything with spray lacquer. I use spray lacquer on things like this because it dries so quick and is really easy to work with. I'm gonna put some bottle openers on the ends of all these. I've been selling these at craft shows for a while now, and I think the reason I always sell out of them is because they make great gifts, especially at Christmas time. When that person doesn't know what to get that other person, you get them a decent 6-pack of beer, you throw it in one of these beer caddies, and it makes a perfect, beautiful gift, a handmade gift. So all of the dowels and the solid wood came from my friends at Kencraft at kencraftcompany.com. Check them out. Even the dowel handle on this is walnut. How cool is that? I do have plans for these available on my website at makesomething.tv. They're really easy to read and really easy to follow. Anybody that buys my books or my plans, I highly encourage you to make those projects and then sell those items online or at craft shows. I want you to be able to make money doing woodworking, and so the plans that I have for these guys should help you do so. We're going to talk about pricing more in a future video. The craft show that I applied for is in November. If I get accepted, I'm going to gather up all the items and we're going to talk about what I'm going to sell and how much I'm going to sell them for. So basically, how you come up with the price is you have a day rate. How much would you charge to be in your shop all day? So once you have your day rate, you figure out how many of these you could make in one day and then divide that up, plus the cost of your materials. I like to keep the formula simple and eliminate all the mileage and the electricity and the wear and tear on your tools. Just throw all that into your day rate. Get rid of all that fancy math. And it's really important that you remember that your skills and your knowledge and the tool set that you have is worth something. So don't undervalue yourself. All right, folks, that is it. I will see you next week with a brand new project. As always, be safe, have fun, stay passionate, and make something. Don't forget, we got plans at makesomething.tv. Later.